Welcome to the Actually I Can Female Entrepreneur podcast. I am your host, Kayleigh Greenacre, a business strategist, coach, TEDx speaker, author, and your go-to woman for all things business strategy. I am obsessed with supporting female entrepreneurs to grow unstoppable six and multi-six-figure businesses that they love, giving them the freedom and life that they desire. During this podcast, I'll be sharing with you everything that you need to become a successful female entrepreneur, from the mindset shifts to sales and marketing strategies, and how to become an iconic leader that people can't get enough of. It is my mission to help you stand out, attract your dream clients and customers, and sell out of your offers with ease whilst building the business and life of your dreams. Let's make this your reality, ladies. Hello, ladies, and welcome to another episode of Actually I Can, the Female Entrepreneur podcast. I am your host, Kayleigh Greenacre, and I am joined today by the fabulous Fiona, who is the founder of The Right Field, a boutique that focuses on brand voice and copywriting. And in this episode, we're going to be discussing the importance of a brand voice and how this can support you and your business in standing out. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Fiona. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome you here. How are you doing today?
I'm great. And thank you very much for asking me. I really appreciate it. I enjoy all of our conversations. So it's great to be on your podcast. So thank you.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much, darling. So why don't you give everyone that's listening a little bit of a background to your journey and how your business has come about?
Yeah, so as a child, I was an avid reader, someone who took great delight in writing as well. And a natural progression was for me to become an English teacher. I didn't really stay in the classroom full time for long because I got promoted into educational leadership quite early. So having a kind of 15-year career in educational leadership, working across different schools, really investing in leadership and coaching programs across networks. I started to fall back in love, I guess it was during COVID, with writing, literature, everything creative. I was kind of drawn back to that during COVID. And then the right field came about because I decided it was time to really reinvest in that creative spark that brings me lots of joy, and use the transferable skills that I have via education, coaching, mastery of the written words to start my brand voice boutique. And that's where we are now. So the Right Field works predominantly with female founded and family founded businesses, helping with copywriting services. Some of it is done for you copywriting, but also there are services to support with brand voice. So mentoring of people starting out in their business journey, people who are looking to transition from a small business to a credible brand. And it's absolutely wonderful working with those people.
Oh, amazing. It's great to always hear your journey. And I know that both Fiona and I have both got backgrounds in terms of education and the transition and building business in terms of, in something that we're really passionate about is just incredible. And I know that there's so many other fabulous ladies out there, either from educational background, but also from other backgrounds that are really wanting to grow their business. So I want to dive into branding today because number one, you're an absolute expert and queen of brand voice, branding and brand voice. But I feel like there's a lot to branding and building a personal brand. And there's this, kind of concept or not concept, but I think a lot of people think that branding is all to do with the logo, the colors, the fonts, and that's it. But it's so much more than that, isn't it? So can you just give us a little bit of an explanation as to what really is a personal brand or branding?
Yeah, I think we'll probably come on to the difference or the merging between personal and business branding a little bit later on, because that's a really interesting topic in itself. But when I start off with a client working on a project, we work from the basis that it's their skill, them being experts in their field, that attract their own customer base in the first instance. And then you've got your brand aesthetic, which draws them in. So your logo, the colors that we spend so much time looking at. So
Using.
all of those wonderful brand aesthetics. But ultimately, it's your brand voice that fosters connection, trust, loyalty, and enables your target client to really invest in you through their loyalty, and also your service or product becoming a fabric of their everyday life.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. So why would you say it's so important then for the female entrepreneurs that listen to this podcast? Why is it so important for all of them to have a unique brand?
Yeah, really good question. In the last 10 years or so, the way that we communicate and also the way that we sell has undergone a massive transformation. I think I read recently that the average person absorbs 10,000 plus marketing messages every day. So we've
Wow.
got a space there. It's fertile ground for selling, and it's wonderful, and there's so much opportunity. But it's also a space that's very noisy, and you've got a lot of people shouting out loud about their services, and then you're told all the time, well, you need to stand out, and you're like, okay, yeah, I know I need to stand out. How do I do that? And it's your brand voice that enables you to do that. I've seen people kind of fall into the pitfalls of just getting a copywriter, could be a fabulous copywriter, to write their website. But then there's a massive disconnect between the copy on the website and who they are as a person,
Yeah.
because you could be someone working in a really creative space who isn't very corporate. But then if you have this mechanic corporate tone of voice on your website, it just doesn't land with the customers because it's not authentic. So I would say that authenticity is key. Being true to yourself, shining a light on your values and what drives you in your work, but also reaching that really useful balance between authority in your industry, but also authenticity, and working with someone who supports you with your brand voice, your tone of voice. Bringing all of that together can be really powerful.
Absolutely. And you know what? I know I talk an awful lot about leadership and about standing out and being unique. And, you know, I'm sure you'll agree with me on this is, you know, to be an authority is one thing, but to be a true leader in the online space is a completely different thing. And I think having that brand voice, that really unique voice for everyone will ultimately help them separate themselves from everyone else in their, you know, in their niche. I mean, do you find that, you know, with the people that you work with, when they first come to you, for example, do you find that they are struggling to find their brand voice, or is it that they're struggling to, you know, either identify what it is or to separate from everyone else?
Yeah, so I'm yet to come across a client who's voiceless. And one of the things that I often say is that the people I work with, predominantly women,
Yes.
sassy, they're experts in their field, they're knowledgeable, they can talk at length for hour upon hour about what they do, how they do it, and their faces light up when they're telling us.
Mm,
But when it comes to putting that into the written words, suddenly there's analysis paralysis and they freeze. And it could be for a number of reasons. So I'll give you a couple of examples of clients that I've worked with recently. One is in the beauty and aesthetics field. She has so many qualifications. She's been working in the trade for years and years. She's trained with the best. She's worked on stunning campaigns.
mm,
But we had to work through a block where she didn't see herself as a businesswoman. She didn't see herself as the leader that she was. And therefore, when it came to working with messaging with her clients on email or writing blogs or cultivating the copy for her website, she wasn't able to do it. And then at the same period of time, I was working with someone who is in education, who delivers really niche, but really, really purpose-led services,
mm,
who was very aware of all of the qualifications that she had. She wasn't shy about talking about them, but she was really concerned that she wanted to show the skills, the qualifications, what she brings with her services in a way that isn't showy.
wow.
And sometimes that's a block for people as well, because Some people, because of how they've transitioned across to business, or just because of their personalities, they may be more introvert. They find it difficult to sell. And I know you talk about this so much, about the way that you can be a leader and sell with soul and do it in a way where you're just adding so much value. For some people who haven't done the work on that, it's quite alien. So working with someone else to really nail your brand voice, to kind of get away from the echo chamber of your own mind, and have an external perspective, an expert perspective, really work with you, look at what makes you tick, look at what sets you apart from others in your industry, and then put that down into short form and long form copy is something that can be so powerful, because then all of the overthinking is removed from it. You've got your suite of copy, you can put it out there, you can repurpose it for your social media and everything, and you don't have those limitations anymore.
Amazing. Amazing. That's really, really good. So I'm going to ask you a question now in terms of what I think some of our listeners might be experiencing, because, you know, we've talked about sort of separating themselves from everyone else by being unique and having this brand voice, and obviously, you know, reaching out to an expert such as yourself to support them. If they were trying to, you know, identify their brand voice themselves, is there anything specifically that you would suggest to them to start with? Because I feel that, you know, there are, again, a lot of people in the online space that probably feel that they're just sort of blending in, and we really want them to stand out. So what advice could you give them that would support them in sort of trying to I say find their unique brands and voice, but, you know, to help them or support them with that?
Yeah, so we always start with brand values, because ultimately it's your values, it's your why that motivates you through the tough times, the good times, and helps you to communicate the value you're adding to others. It can't stop with values, because no one ever disagrees with values. Everyone's always on board with them, but we have to think about how we communicate them in a way that's really concise and really helps you to start telling the story. So then once we've got the articulation of the brand values nailed, we then work towards building a brand voice bank consisting of power words that are really authentic to you,
Yeah.
power phrases, and also your strap line, because it has to be consistent. And
Yeah.
by banking up these words, phrases, and strap lines for your brand copy, again, it makes it sustainable, it makes it memorable. You've got these words and phrases that you can hook your brand off, and people will start to recognize it and start to say, ah, that's the person who does X, Y, and Z. So that's always the advice that I start with. Second to that, it's all about storytelling.
Yes. Yeah.
Brand stories tell. And we know, we've heard it so many times, that people buy people. And sometimes people are a little bit reticent because they don't want to show too much of themselves, or they don't want to be too raw. But ultimately, having the right balance of transparency is something that allows your target client to see you for who you are. And the more that you show up, the more visible you are in a way that's comfortable to you, because it's not going to be the same for everyone. Ultimately, that's then the platform for you to start telling brand stories, which is the most powerful way of converting leads to clients, in my experience.
Absolutely. I completely echo this, you know, in terms of storytelling, you know, it's one of the most powerful things, 100%. And I know that I saw a massive shift when I started to share with my audience more of my own personal journey, my story, and allowing people to see that I was that assistant head teacher that's come out of education. I am a mom, a single mom, and I'm building a business, and I enjoy doing this. And this is my character. This is my personality, all of the things. And when I started to share more of that with my audience, there was automatically a massive shift in terms of connections and community building. And I feel like that really, really supported me. And I remember doing that shift at back end of 2021, early 2022. And it was, again, at the time where I was launching a brand new program, and it just really supported me and helped me. But like I said, it's all to do with that connection and building that community. And I mean, what would your take be on that in terms of community building? Because although we're not here to talk about community building as such on this episode, but I feel like it has a massive impact, doesn't it? And it supports people if they have their own, that own brand voice and obviously storytelling. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm massively invested in community, building a network. That's how we met in this space.
Yes.
And there are so many people out there who are so gracious with their time, with their experience, and with their skills, and we can learn from each other's stories. I also feel that we have a responsibility in the space to put our stories out there so that we can show people. It might just be the silent watchers, the people who don't double click, who aren't vocal in the comments, but people who are silently watching, who may have their own blocks or limitations, to shine a light on the path for those people so they can step into whatever it is they want to do. Also, ultimately, we're out here making a living. And it's okay to say that we want to make profit and we want to sell and we want to do well as we're adding value. So those brand stories really enable us to position the audience within our story, and position us or our service or our product within the everyday fabric of their life. So there's different ways that you can do it. I know that a lot is said about pain point marketing, talking about what is going wrong for that person at the moment and how you offer the solution. And I feel that there's a real space for that. I also feel that the story of the transformation is the most powerful, the most vital. Of course, you can talk about those pain points, but ultimately we need to paint a picture of what the value will be after having experienced your product, your service, or been part of your community. So those brand stories are so powerful. Also, just the notion of positioning your client as the hero in the story and giving equal weight to what life is like before and what life is like after your brand is part of their life.
Oh, amazing. I love that. I love the point that you're saying in terms of sharing the transformation. I often say to people, to my clients and my community, it's giving them a visualization, painting a picture in their mind in terms of what is possible and actually taking them on that journey. And I think it's very easy, isn't it, to, if we touch on that kind of marketing side of things, it's very easy to put out an offer, tell them the features, tell them what's included. And then, people sort of question themselves as to why they're hearing crickets and why they're not getting the sales. But actually a massive part of that, like you said, is the storytelling, is the transformation, allowing people to see what journey they can actually go on themselves because of the other people that have already been on that journey, whether it's yourself as a female entrepreneur or whether you're talking about past clients. Either or, it doesn't matter. But that massive storytelling piece in terms of the transformation is super, super important.
Yeah, and it's so relatable as well because we're all a little bit nosy, we're all inquisitive. There's a reason why reality TV is as popular as it is, but we invest in other people's stories, even the people that we don't know.
Yeah.
So by having all of those different examples of brand storytelling, and you can do that so well through your social media, it's the perfect space for it. And also just being really smart about the way that you use case studies and share your testimonials. And it's not just about your words for your brand, it's about capturing the voice of the person who has experienced your product or service and also utilizing that in your sales strategy, because people love hearing those transformations. We all want a happily ever after, and marketing is not separate to that.
Absolutely. Hearing, or seeing or reading the transformation, seeing what's possible, and absolutely, you know, being able to share the full transformation, the story. You're absolutely right as well in terms of, you know, but it's a little bit like a reality TV show, isn't it? People love to kind of find out people's journeys and where they started and their pain points, their problems, all of the things that they, you know, that they experienced at the beginning, and then with the full transformation, the journey they could go on, and finding out what they were able to actually achieve, you know. And everyone's achievements are worth celebrating, aren't they? Regardless of how big or small they are. So as a female entrepreneur, whatever your business or your niche or focus is, you know, really celebrate every single one of your clients or the customers that come through your door and, you know, buy your products or experience your services or your programs, because that is worth celebrating. And, you know, I often say as well, so many people are results driven, aren't they? People look for the results. They look for the social proof. They want to know what is possible for them, because it's all well and good putting up a price at, you know, something beautiful and aesthetically pleasing. But ultimately, if we can't demonstrate or share with our audience what is possible for them in that transformation, then again, we may well struggle to sell.
Absolutely. And you were saying earlier about the power in community. People want to be part of something bigger than themselves. So building that community and showing those relatable stories and transformations really helps the client or the customer to be on the journey with you.
Yeah, amazing. So let's kind of go back to words, because I know that you were saying, and you're sharing with our listeners some tips in terms of how to kind of start off with their brands and what they can do. What, or how should I say, sorry, how can words and copy change the way that brands are represented?
It's about you being unique within your own brand. And we all have our own unique way of speaking. We all have our own colloquialisms. We all have different ways that we reach out to people in a more kind of intimate, close friend setting. Charlotte Tilbury, I always use as a wonderful example of this, and her use of the word darlings.
Darlings. Yeah.
Yeah, I like to think
I love it.
yeah, I like to think that that's not a strategy that's been put in there from a wonderful marketing team. I really like to think that that's just her.
Yeah.
And she's worked with some great strategists who have decided to just make the copy, the language around the brand really, really unique to her. So it can be as simple as a single word.
Yes.
It can be as simple as a strap line that's memorable, or it can be as simple as you really nailing your own personal bio or your own about copy in a really concise way that you then repurpose across all of your platforms, across each of your touch points, so that people start to think that they know you, even if you're not actually telling them a huge amount about your life behind the scenes. Because for different people, there will be a different point of what they're comfortable with.
Yeah. Amazing. What great advice there. So for those of you that are listening, you know, identifying obviously your values first of all, and then being able to identify those words, those keywords, your strap line, really thinking about your bio. And obviously, of course, if you want any support or further help, then please do reach out to Fiona. So we're coming towards the end of the episode, Fiona, and I ask every single guest this question: what is your word or mantra for this year?
It's become.
Ooh,
And there's a story behind it. I'm sure you won't be surprised after what we've just been discussing. So 2 years ago, I had my word of the year for the first time, and it was balance. I was at a point in my life where I really needed to make a change, and I needed balance in all aspects of my life. That was successful. So then last year's word was build, to
nice.
kind of capitalize on where I'd got to and then propel myself further. So for me now, being more established in the world of entrepreneurship, the word for me is becoming. I want to become that woman who steps into every opportunity. I want to be that woman who's got her life in order, who's got all the admin done, who really feels that I'm working in a streamlined and strategic way to save time. And I really want to feel that I'm becoming the person who my future self is going to be proud of, because I'm just moving forward with wild self-belief of what I'm capable of.
Oh, I'm obsessed with this. I absolutely love this. Thank you so, so much for sharing. And I think it's always really important for everyone to have a word or a mantra, or, both, but a word of the year. What are you sticking by on? What, again, it goes back to kind of your roots of your beliefs and your values, doesn't it? Oh,
Yeah.
thank you so much, my lovely. So just before we finish, one last piece of advice that you'd give our listeners today.
Just believe that you can do it. What's the worst that could happen? By showing up with self-belief, I'm not asking anyone to make radical moves and changes to their life in an instant, but just by having that self-belief, waking up every day, being deliberate about it, committing to being 10% braver
Yeah.
with that self-belief, what's the worst that could happen? Just go for it.
Oh, I love this. Thank you so, so much for being my fabulous guest on today's episode, Fiona. It's been an absolute pleasure. Can you just remind our listeners of where they can find and connect with you?
Of course, thank you very much. So I am on Instagram as Fiona O'Sullivan at The Right Field, and my website is www.therightfield.co.uk, and I'd love to hear from your lovely listeners.
Oh, amazing. So go and give Fiona a follow, connect with her, reach out, say hello. And she is your number one queen for if you really want some support with your branding, your brand voice, and also your copy. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for tuning in or joining us for today's episode. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. And I will see you again next time. Thank you for tuning in to the Actually I Can Female Entrepreneur podcast with me, your host, Kayleigh Greenacre. If you are ready to build, grow, and scale your dream six-figure or multi-six-figure business, then head to our website now for more information or connect with me on socials to see how you can create your dream business and dream life.